Greetings, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to episode number 2 of the Hometown Moguls podcast. My name is Ryan Yoder, and I am the host. If this is the first one you're taking a look at, make sure you go back to episode 1, hit subscribe, and get a little background information on what I'm trying to accomplish here. This is an exciting episode because it's my very first interview. My good friend Sean Fish agreed to come on and be the guinea pig and test out all the technical sides of jumping on with Zoom and recording it and getting it all to work up. And not only did it turn out to what I think was a great interview, very candid and informational on his part, but I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Sean's a great guy, and I think you'll enjoy it too. Do you want to do a quick introduction? Tell us who you are, what you got going on business-wise?
Sure. Yeah. I'm glad that you contacted me and asked to do this. When you asked me the other day, I was like, pretty neat. Somebody wants to know about what I do. Like, people don't usually want to know about the grass guy. So I was pretty excited. So I own a small lawn and landscape company in Townsend. Primarily residential is our focus. We have a tree crew and a lawn and landscape crew, basically. During the busy time of year, we can have like 10 people working for us. Right now through the winter, we have 3 full-time, an office person, and myself. So like 5 through the winter. And we've been staying pretty busy here. At least, this winter, sometimes it gets a little slow, but we do our lawn and landscape stuff is like kind of full service. So cut the grass, trim the bushes, pretty regimented stuff, recurring, keeping properties looking nice. And then the tree service, I have a bucket truck. We do trimming, dead wooding, stump removal, tree removal, all kinds of anything related to trees. We don't do any plant health care, but yeah, pretty much anything that grows, we can cut or plant. We've been doing it since we're about to be 10 years now, August 2011. So yeah, we're just shy of 10 years I've been doing this.
That's a pretty solid run. I mean, what was your experience before that? Did you work for other companies prior to get your experience, or did you kind of jump right in and start running your own crew?
So it completely happened like unplanned, basically. Looking back, I could have saved myself probably 8 years if I would have had like 1 year of experience doing any of this stuff. Even if, whether it was business related or technical, with the lawns or whatever, everything that I've done, I've learned on my own. Most of the time was the hard way, and then trained the people below me to do it that way. A lot of YouTube, there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube. I never went and did anything that I didn't think I could do. Like I can't do pavers, so I've never attempted a paver patio. With trees, I always started small, and then now we can take down pretty much any tree. So how it actually started was I was a tow truck driver for AAA, and I did that right out of high school. I bought a house when I was 19, so my realtor was like, it was right after the crash, like there's houses everywhere that were vacant. And he's like, man, these lawns, like this person living in California, this grass is knee high, like nobody wants to buy it. It looks like hell, So I was like, well, I mean, I work second shift. I don't go until 3. I don't really like sitting around all day, and I don't really want a part-time job because I have a full-time job. So, maybe I can get a license and find out what it needs to be able to, service your properties. Like, it'd be great. There's not really any commitments. House sells. I don't need the money anyway. So I had a 1990 Ford Ranger. I was working full time, like I said. Picked up a weed eater at Newcastle Farmers Market and a broom. I didn't even have a blower for a whole year. And I started mowing basically vacant properties, and it got busier and busier. And then he would tell his other realtors, he can do mulch, small stuff. Everything was real small, basically stuff that homeowners could do. I mean, there was nothing technical about it. And then after a year, it was like, some bigger projects, some of this. And then it kind of got to the point after 2 or 3 where it was like, this is a whole lot of work and it's not sustainable. You can't really work 2 full-time jobs. And, when you're 20 and you don't really have anything to do, you can, but like, what am I going to do here? Am I going to make something out of this, or am I going to kind of move on with my other career and, you know, maybe move up the ranks in that company a little bit rather than having the same position for 3 years. And it actually worked out pretty well because my dad was not happy with his job. So he kind of took some time off, got another job in the same industry, and then helped me. So I didn't have to have like a full-time employee. Most of the time I would, cut grass or something on myself or by myself. And then, it was a big mulch job or something, I would just have him help me. And, we built it a lot together. We both had vision of where we could go, and hopefully some freedoms of, and financially and time related and all that kind of stuff. The reason that most people go into business. So that was basically how I got like started cutting grass.
So, I mean, I imagine that's a pretty scary transition of going from some, reliable that someone else is paying you to then you make that leap of faith into having to then pay for your own way. I mean, what was the transition like into that? Did it adjust lifestyle at first, or was it a pretty smooth transition into it?
So this goes with a lot of things, not even business. Like when you're 20 years old, you don't know what you don't know. In my head, I'm thinking, if I can make $500 a week, I don't really have any bills. I have an $800 mortgage. Like, I don't have a truck payment. Life was really simple. I could probably do this. And then it's like, well, I'm a business now. I have to have insurance. That's going to cost a couple $100 a month. I have a truck that needs maintenance, and I'm driving it every day. So instead of it being X amount in gas, now it's 5 times because I drive the truck all day long. And you start realizing, wow, this is actually going to cost a whole lot more. So not starting it with a whole lot of startup capital and a really good plan. Like I said, there's a couple years of hard learning that if I would have went about it a different way. But like I said, the whole thing was so unplanned that it worked out. I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. But it was definitely, I had health insurance there. I had a 401k, paid vacation. I got a day and a half, no, 3/4 of a day off every 2 weeks. So if I want to go to the beach for a week, still getting my salary. I was second shift, so I can do what I want to during the day. It was a good job for an 18-year-old guy when the economy was terrible, and they took a gamble on me. I didn't have any experience. I was young, and I've always appreciated them for that because they're a big company and they can hire pretty much the best of the best. That's kind of the good thing about being a big company, and that was. I just always think about it. You don't know what you don't know, and I'm glad that I did it, but if I would have known what was ahead of me, then I'd have been like, "You're nuts! Why would you do that?"
What type of resources, I mean, if any, I know you said it was unplanned, you kind of jumped in being younger. I mean, were there books that you kind of picked up on where I know you said your dad kind of helped out? Were there mentors that you kind of asked? Because, I mean, it seems like in my mind, that's somewhat daunting task of finding insurance, getting an actual business license. Like, I mean, there's some logistics involved to that, accounting and setting that whole system up. I mean, was that something you did by yourself from day one, just kind of figured it out?
So I'll start off when I guess the best way to answer something like this is like a practical story. So when I went from a sole proprietor, I had employees. I needed to kind of remove myself. Obviously, I'm an employee, but I needed to remove and reduce liability. So I wanted to become an LLC, and I tried to go through different avenues of how to set that up, and it's thousands of dollars. And I'm thinking, well, how hard could this be? I mean, people do this every day. So they're like, well, you can't do it if you don't do this. And um, I went down to Dover, and they basically walk you through it. Like I don't want to say easy, but I bet you I didn't spend more than a day on it. It could have taken 2 weeks by the time I went to this guy, and it took me a half hour. I went to this guy, it took me a half hour. But they, the people in those offices are pretty good at, walking you through the steps. And you have to have a good banker. We use Fulton Bank here in Middletown. It's a small bank, and they helped us a lot with that. Insurance. My agent now, who is the first agent I got a hold of them from the Diamond Car Wash. I worked there in high school. So that was a pretty good referral, and they've been my agent for 10 years. Um, I didn't really read too many books at the beginning. Now that I'm more into business, I definitely listen to podcasts and read a little bit. But in the beginning, it was kind of just head first and full throttle and just work really hard.
Yeah. I mean, and you're a humble guy, and I mentioned it before, but I do want to kind of pick your brain a little bit about,
Sure.
you know, from what I see day to day doing what I do, I would say over 90% of the business owners that I reach out to are at least one or two generations in age above me. It's very rare that I get to talk to and meet people that have employees and have a business of their own that are the same age as me, our generation. I feel like I don't know why that it's just rare to see. I mean, is that a pretty fair assessment of looking around your peer base? I mean,
There's there's a lot of good companies, especially obviously I'm from the MOT area, so I know a lot of local business owners. Guys that own repair shops for vehicles I went to high school with, an electrical contractor. I know a good bit of people that are my age that are doing pretty well. I try to when I answer questions about like ownership, like when it's like the company owner versus an employee, there's nothing wrong with being either. I a lot of times envy people that are done it for and like they are done. That's there's something to be said for that. If I'm doing a bid on a job and the customer's never heard of me and they don't know, I pull up in an old truck or whatever, it's not lettered, maybe I don't have a shirt with a logo on it, um, or maybe it's a dirty shirt, and they think, is this guy, is he the owner? Is he a salesman? Is he the guy that drags the branches? Like, who is this guy? Is he capable of taking us down? It's over a fence and a shed, and there's a lot of danger involved. Now, this other guy, he might be more, he might be less, but he's in his 50s or 60s. He can talk the talk, and he had a nice truck. Maybe he's better for it. So I think in the beginning, when you're new, it's hard to, and I don't know that I've specifically had this happen, but I can imagine the customer's perspective. So I now that our trucks are lettered and people see us and we're on Facebook and people share our posts all the time. Once you have like a reputable business and you're known for taking care of clients and being reasonably priced and all that stuff, that aspect I think becomes secondary. The job is primary. Yeah, I mean it's probably been challenging, especially in my early 20s, because if you're trying to sell a job to somebody that's in their 60s or 70s, and you're a kid, people still call me kid, like customers and other business owners and stuff. So,
was there a personal, I guess, growth with, when say the first couple bids you went in, meeting the people, your comfort level as the years went on, did you notice a development with your own comfort level, and that affecting the success of gaining more jobs as you got more confident and you viewed yourself more as your experience, and that showed through when you were talking to someone that say didn't know you already up front?
so that's an interesting question, because it really got my gears turning about how my sales process is. I'm not the kind that's gonna call you every single day for a week, like close. If somebody calls in, whether it would depend whatever service it is that we offer, the first thing is, what do you want? Like, do you know what you want? If you do, then I will give you a price on what you want. If you're calling for an opinion, I'll give you my honest opinion. If you're nervous that the tree that's leaning, it needs to come down because you think it's going to fall, I'm a certified arborist. I'll do an assessment of that tree. If it's healthy, I would never recommend removing a healthy tree. And sometimes maybe the fact that I'm not like, oh my gosh, like think about your shed and your belongings in it. Like this, if this tree came down, it'd be terrible. But like, I'm not that kind of salesman. I've always kept it real. I think people probably appreciate that. I have a high percentage of closing. Probably some of that is I I really do everything that I can to keep our prices very reasonable. I know I don't want to be the lowest. That's not any good for the industry, but I'm usually not the highest. And I can't think of really anything other than like when I first started thinking, is this a branch that I could actually remove? If it was something that I was doubting, I might say, we might not be the company for you. But I think that the honesty that I've had in all of our selling has been pretty good with customers, and I think that they've picked up and respected me on that.
Yeah, I mean, just as a side note, as a story, I have a huge amount of respect, even more, for what you do on a daily basis, because we decided to try to cut down 25 Leyland Cypresses we had in our yard.
I have a story about
that. So thinking, we'll trim it as it goes, one at a time. And I think I went through, got 30-yard roll-offs, from my own company. And I think we went through 5 of them. It was way more than we assumed it would. It took probably 2 months of several weekend, adventures with a chainsaw and having no idea what I was doing. People just tugging with tow lines, trying to make sure it didn't hit the neighbor's house. And
yeah.
So, I mean, I certainly see what you do on a daily basis, and I have a huge amount of respect for it.
Yeah. And I have some notes here for things to talk about as far as the industry itself is concerned, that we can probably go into later. But efficiencies, and when I said, keeping customers' budgets in mind, the market, and this is true with any single or any industry. The market is what the market is. If a dumpster, now I don't roll offs, I think the last time I did it was like 300 or 400, and then you get 2 tons. You could be some level of higher money because you're reliable, your dumpsters aren't all rusty, and I don't know your specific situation, but basically the market is what it is. If there was so much money in dumpsters, people wouldn't be doing plumbing, because people would say you can get $1,000 a dumpster and you can do 4 in a day like that. But so now, on the other hand, if there wasn't anybody doing dumpsters, you could, but then more people would do it, and then it would bring the price back down. So like the market is what the market is. And my point of that is, with trees, it's so labor intense, and the debris disposal is so expensive, that I've really focused the last 3 years on being as efficient as possible. If I can do a job that, say it's a $1,500 job, I can do it in a third of the time. I can charge the customer a third of the amount of money and make the same amount of money and get on to the next job. Now it's a win-win for all of us. We don't work as hard. We make the same amount of money. Customers say it's 500 of what I would have charged them. It makes sense for everybody. You know what I mean?
It's a great point. And, that is a note I had myself here of, what are, from the outside looking in, for people that don't know about the industry, or, the actual business side of it, or the logistics of, how everything works. I mean, as you got involved, what are things that were surprising about the industry, or about, that were different than you assumed it was going in as you grew?
So the first time, I was only cutting grass at this time. I had a customer ask me to take down a maple tree, and I was like, yeah, I could do that. It was matter of fact, it was January. It was probably 9 years ago. It was the first tree we ever took down. And I had a 4x8 trailer and a 6-foot bed. And it's only 30 foot tall, but it's also 40 foot wide. Like it's like a branch spread. It was the whole front yard. So trees are very deceiving. They don't look that big when they're tall, but when they're on the ground, they're massive, even small ones. So I was talking to somebody. He said, you got to get a climber. You can't just, there wasn't enough room to just drop the tree on its side. He said, you got to get a climber. And I was like, well, what do they do? He said, well, they get up in the tree and they climb it and they cut it down. And I thought, yeah, I've never heard of this before. Who does that? So I searched around, called some people, and they're like, oh, so-and-so, he's a climber. He'll probably do it for you. And he came out and he had this whole tree on the ground in like 20 minutes. And I'm thinking, what a strange job. How many trees can this guy do? Like, is there that much of a need for tree services that somebody has spent their whole career climbing a tree? Like, kids climb trees. what a cool job. So that was like my first thing in the trees. And, and then I spent, like you did with your cypresses, spent about a week cleaning them up because I was really underpowered I had to buy a new saw because my saw wasn't big enough. My trailer was way too small. And I just ran dump loads after dump loads. And then you start realizing, you look at other people like, what are they doing? And then it's like, well, they're not. I remember when we finally finished all the branches, we're like, all right, now we only have the trunk. And it doesn't look like a lot compared to the whole tree, but wood is super, super heavy. And you're like, okay, I'll cut it in 8-inch sections. Okay, now I'll cut it in half because it's super heavy. So the first thing is like, we have to get something that lifts things because we cannot lift this. It just weighs too much. So as we started, but this is over the course of 10 years now. So as time progresses, man, it'd be really nice to get something that dumps. So we get a dump trailer. Now we don't have to spend in business at the dump. For me, since I was my own employee, I can't justify something that dumps. The dump trailer is $10,000. The dump trailer doesn't make me any money. It saves me time and energy. So I have to have a whole lot of time and tied up in dumping for it to make sense to spend $10,000 on a dump trailer. So it was like every time something like that would happen, it's like, okay, now it's time for this. Now it's time for that. And when you're spending all day doing a task that could be done in a third of the time and you have too much stuff to do after that, that's when it's time to invest and do that thing, whatever the thing at the time is that is the bottleneck. And it's always about getting rid of the bottleneck. And it doesn't matter where it is in the company. It could be something physically that you're doing, or it could be something in the office. Like, why does it take us a week to get a customer's estimate out? Like, is it because I'm too busy doing work? Is it because the phone's not being answered? Where's this bottleneck? And trial and error for a decade,
And that brings up something, that I've never been in that position to think about, but, going back to, say, the comfort you had mentioned of having a job, someone else paying you with a 401k, this and that, when you come to that point of, obviously you're forced to then grow. Like you said, you need equipment to handle the jobs as you grow, as, the need comes about, as the owner of the business, is that something that you have to consciously say, like, okay, well, the business needs to grow, but then I also need to make sure I'm my own lifestyle, my own investments for my future and everything. Like, I have to make sure some of that's diverted there. Or is it just you don't have the ability to do that for the first couple of years, and you just everything has to go back into the business just to keep it going?
So when we first started, it was like survival mode, basically. If I had a job that required a ladder, I would put the money from the job to a ladder. I mean, as simple as a $40 ladder. Like, it was as simple as that. And now it's, should we buy this dump truck or should we buy that dump truck? It's all the same things. It's just different items. From a monetary standpoint, for probably, I'm not even going to exaggerate, 7 years, probably until about 3 years ago, I went with like $60 extra a week for fun money. That would be going out, buying clothes, anything. And I'm talking 7 years of the same jeans, $30 Kohl's shoes, because I know that everything that I do at work can be easier and more profitable if I take that money and put it somewhere else that's going to do that. And that's something when it comes to businesses that I think, not that a lot of people can't do that, maybe not that they don't have the, like, I don't know if mental wherewithal, but the courage to do that. I was at a point where, like I said, I had a very small mortgage. I didn't have a truck payment. I was able to do that because there was such a little amount involved. Now I have a 9-month-old. I have a mortgage. I have a wife. Like, she's not going to let me walk around in jeans with rips in them. Like, I have to be realistic now, So for people that have these things, and if you need health insurance, you need it. You can't. It's just not a realistic thing to walk away from. And that's a big thing in starting a business that I think is overlooked a lot. You have to be 100% committed. I had a guy tell me very early on, and I try not to swear, and it's not a bad, but he said you can't half-ass your business. If you half-ass it, you get half-ass results, and that's the truth. If on Tuesday morning, people always think, it must be nice, you can take off. I don't ever take off work, like literally never. I work almost 7 days a week every week. If you want to go fishing with the boys on Tuesday, that's okay, but you're half-assing it, and you probably should have went and sold work and did work that day, and I think a lot of people see that kind of stuff when they think about business owners, like, oh, he's the one making all the money. And a lot of times through the years, my guys have made more money than I have. And ultimately that's my fault. I'm the owner, but that's the reality of it.
Now, looking down the pipeline, have you gotten to a point where you have your eyes set on a certain goal that's next? Where do you go from here? Where do you see yourself as getting to the next step in the evolution of your company?
So me personally, I wanted big, I want tri-state, maybe 50 trucks, like sky's the limit. It doesn't matter what it is. Now that, like today, I texted or I messaged you this morning. I woke up at 4:00, went to the gym. So by 6:15, guy started at 7, gives me 45 minutes to shower, do all that stuff, get the guys going at 7. We had an issue with the saw. I didn't leave the job until 5:30. I come home, kid's already in bed. I didn't see my kid for 5 minutes today. Wife has the food on the dinner. I eat. I get on here, and this is where we're at. And a lot of days that's how it is. And I'm very, very thankful for my wife. She's stuck by me like through all kinds of crazy stuff with this company. I think my goal here, and I've really been focused on it the last year since we knew she was pregnant, is I want to make sure we're growing steady and profitably and reasonably. But I really want to make sure that I'm not 50 years old thinking, why was I working Saturday in May when I could have been at the beach with my family? I don't want to be. I want to look at it now thinking I want to watch him play baseball. I don't want to be putting mulch down. Obviously these customers hire us for that, but I want to make sure that the company is a company and that I own a company and I don't own a job, and that's something that I really didn't look at until about a year ago. I just if something needed to be done, I just did it. And I'm really starting to let the guys do their own tasks, make them, let them make decisions. And I really just want to focus on efficiencies. I don't want to keep bringing that up, but our tree crew is pretty efficient. Compared to where we were 3 years ago, we can really do some work with our bucket truck. We have a machine that drags branches. It doesn't tear up the yard. We have pretty much everything you can think of other than a crane for trees. Our climber's great. But if we switch all of our equipment around to the next level of equipment, now it's going to be super expensive, but we can even double that with the same amount of guys. So the growth of like 50 trucks, like that's really went away, and ultra profitable at a reasonable cost with less work for me, which we'll see how that works out, is my nearest goal, I would say.
And you bring up a good point, and I think that's always good to keep in mind. And I've heard it said on other podcasts and books I'm reading about of, obviously everyone wants to be ultra successful. Everyone wants to be, with the big bank account and sitting pretty, later on in life. But there are things like your time that you can't necessarily put a price on, and that lifestyle and the freedom of coming and going and taking the vacations and stuff like that. And I'm sure, like you said, having a family and young kids and stuff, that definitely brings it into, the right perspective on that. So I can definitely relate on that front of trying to figure out where you draw the line of, all right, I've been checking emails, all evening. I got to take a break here, or, whatever, and really focus on the family time before they go to bed, and you miss out on that, which it sounds like you can definitely relate to.
That's that's a really scary thing. And I've always been so full throttle ahead with everything that I do, whether it's fitness or work. Like, I really try not to half-ass anything, So I think, hopefully this is the first thing that I look at and, like, makes sense, and we do it in a way that is good. Like, I don't want my son to go to bed every night before I, come home. That's not a good life for him or I, or certainly my wife. So that that's the immediate goal here.
Gotcha.
Sure.
One of the things we're commenting back and forth on something I posted today, morning routines, and you mentioned going to the gym. I'm the same way. I have to basically do something physical, whether it's lift, yoga with my wife, something every day, or I feel like my day is off. What do you do when you're not at work? Do you meditate? Is your exercise your form of meditation? Like, what do you do to take care of your mental state and take advantage of the downtime that you actually do give yourself?
Yeah. So, one of my coaches, I'm not going to act like I made this up, but 1 hour of the day is only 4% of the day, right? So 4% isn't a whole lot. If you can devote a half hour, that's 2% of your day. Like, you can find a half hour. The busiest people can find a half hour of the day, and it doesn't have to be something super extenuating. That's walking around your block or whatever. I tell my guys, eat healthy. You can't eat Wawa in the morning and then expect to do physical labor all day. You're gonna feel terrible. Like, you have to eat right. You have to treat your body right. And so I met my wife when we ran cross country at Middletown, and I've always pretty much just done cardio. I don't weigh much. I don't have much muscle mass, but I lift. I getting the endorphins going first thing in the morning. And some nights, if I'm real tired or it's been a late night or several days in a row, I won't work out the next morning because I'm like, I just have to sleep in. I have to sleep in, and I actually feel worse. I sleep 2 hours longer. I'm not even kidding. I feel worse. If once you get past, the hard part, and it takes 7 days to form a habit. If you get into that habit and routine, and you work out, and like, I wake up at 4, I'm in the gym by 5, I'm out by 6. That start to the day, I told you, like, by 7 o'clock, there's so many days I can't believe how much stuff I've done by 7 o'clock. And then when I sleep until 8 on the given Saturday throughout the year, I'm like, before you know it, you lounge around, you do this, you check Facebook, boom, it's 11 o'clock, you haven't done anything. By 11 o'clock most days, I'm 7 hours into my day. I get a lot of stuff done by 11 o'clock.
Giving you the floor and the platform here of, once we start sharing this thing, is there anything specific that you want to get out there? Anything you want to promote, as far as the business, anything that, people listening can keep an ear out for, ideal referrals to send your way, introductions, anything like that? How, as a business owner, how can I help you? How can other people help you?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we have all kinds of stuff we can talk about there. And I have a few things that I wrote down also that, maybe we can touch on. Um, Specifically for my company, good referrals. We try to stick to all-inclusive customers. If somebody calls in to trim 5 bushes, a lot of times we can squeeze it in. It's really hard to do a small job. Like, it comes back to efficiency. I can't charge more than it's worth because I'm not going to be in the area and I have to charge travel and all that stuff. 5 bushes, like, it's not a lot of work. We can be there for 20 minutes. But the point of that is, if I'm mowing your grass and I know May is going to need a bush trimming, the middle of July is going to be a bush trimming, and then when we do a fall cleanup, I can set my schedule up in February and set up 5 bush trimming jobs in that day. So for the lawn and landscape, we try to do like full service packages, and not that everybody has to do every single thing. It just makes it so that we can do it efficiently. It doesn't take us a month to get out there, and it's done when it needs to be done. So if somebody's interested in kind of a package deal there, everything is a la carte. We don't do like 12-month programs. Some people do that. We don't. But that would be a great lead for our lawn stuff. And trees, like I said, anything with trees, it could be stumps, anything other than plant healthcare, really. I'm an ISA certified arborist, so I can do um, hazardous tree risk assessments. So if like I made a comment about, the tree's leaning over a fence, and just because it's leaning doesn't, it develops reaction wood so that it actually corrects itself. And if you look at the inside of the tree, the rings will be oval because the backside of the tree has grown stronger. So just because it's leaning doesn't mean that it's in danger of hurting something. And I can come out and evaluate the tree, and is this a risk or is it not a risk? I love talking about tree risk assessment. It's probably my favorite. I don't get a whole lot of that, but I really like doing those assessments. And snow plowing, that's like a third kind of thing. And snow plowing is really interesting because people don't really think of snow and ice management in Delaware, but it's actually a really like niche kind of thing because with insurance slip and falls, and there's a lot of people that are getting out of it. It's really expensive to do. We don't get a lot of snow, so a lot of people don't have the equipment to be able to do big parking lots and stuff. And we have a couple loaders, and we have a lot of snow accounts. So unfortunately for that, we only do commercial because it's really hard to plan to plow a driveway. If you get 4 inches, like people aren't going to pay usually for 2 or 3 inches. So we've kind of stuck to commercial on the snow plowing thing. And then I kind of want to put in a shameless plug. We just opened up Townsend Landscape Supply in Townsend. So that is completely separate from the Lawn and Landscape. That's a 4351 South DuPont Highway, just south of 71. We'll sell mulch, bulk products. So it's going to be bulk mulch, decorative stone, stone for like crush and run 57 stone, that kind of stuff, topsoil. And then I'm going to have a local producer of straw, grass seed, and basically landscape stuff. That's open to homeowner. We do delivery, all kinds of stuff there. Like I said, completely separate, but the opportunity presented itself. So I just kind of dove into that as I talk about having more time, right? Like, I don't know.
Ain't nothing wrong with plugging that. I remember you recently posted about it, so I didn't know how official it was that if you were going to bring it up, I was going to let you do that on your own. But that that does bring up you're talking about planning and stuff. I mean, so that wasn't something that was on the horizon that you kind of sought out. It just happened to be there, and you had the ability to jump in on it.
So the thing, as I've, one of the things that I've learned over the 10 years was like really be good at what you're good at. And you don't have to offer 1,000 things. You can't, because you can't be the best at all of them. Like just figure out what you can do good and do it well. The mulch yard thing has always been an interest to me because it's in my industry kind of, but it's retail. The problem with grass is there's 8 hours in a day. You can only mow what you can mow. The retail aspect of that, now I'm sure I'm in for a learning experience here. And I actually have a better plan for this than my whole lawn thing, 10 years ago when I was 20. But it's true, you could get a call, I need 15 yards of mulch, and it takes you 15 minutes to go and deliver it. And the sales turnover is just a lot different. Now, the difference between service and retail is service. I know exactly what my guys are going to produce that day. Retail, I could have a guy come in and sit there all day and not produce a penny. So there's gives and takes with that. But I saw the yard there, and I found out who owned it. The company had went out of business. I found out who owned it. I negotiated a lease with them, and we're going to do a lease for at least a year and see where it goes. And I think it'll be a good segue. And we buy a ton of product. Like I'm going to be, the lawn service is going to be probably the biggest customer. We buy all that product all the time. So that'll be good for that company too.
Well, that's awesome.
That's a bottleneck. If we're trying to do a job and we're 1 yard of mulch short at 4:30, we're done the job because we're stuck. We can't do anything. Now tomorrow's job isn't going to start till 11, which means the guys aren't going to get done till 7 because I'm, a wheelbarrow short of mulch. I go over there, pick up the mulch. Customer from the next day doesn't have to be delayed. Everything, like I said, reducing bottlenecks, the best that I can.
Now, what did you have on your notes of some ideas? I'm interested to see what you kind of thought of going into this.
Yeah, I find it kind of I'll tell you that I'll just tell you what I was thinking anyway. So when I'm selling a lawn service, a lot of people, if they move to the area and we have bigger lawns around Middletown, it's like, oh my gosh, it's gonna take me all Saturday to mow my grass. I have to hire a lawn service. They've never hired a lawn service. Like, what does this entail? What do you do? Like, most people think of grass like it's long, you cut it and you're done with it. Like, so what I tell them is we're like a trash service. You sign up, I'll tell you we'll be there on Tuesdays. I can guarantee every single Tuesday between 9:15 and 9:30 we're going to be there. We're going to stripe your lawn, we're going to string trim it, we're going to blow off the surfaces, you're going to get a bill. You'll probably never have to call us, and hopefully we don't leave the gates open because you'll call us for that. But aside from that, like, we are a trash company, and kind of what I find interesting about business in general is the business is all the same. We're just doing a little bit of a different thing. Like, whatever we're doing for the customer is different, but we're all doing the same thing here. We're just providing a service, and ours happens to be residual and repetitive, just a little different from each other. But so I found that pretty interesting because I tell everybody that, and then the trash guy interviews me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, it like you said, it's the just doing what you say you're going to do, showing up when you're going to be there, and just making yourself available. That's kind of where I've found success and where our company shines through, I think, is anybody can sell you in an account, hand you an account number and a 1-800 number to call if you have issues. But I have like this relationships I develop. I have people that text me instead of that. They don't have to even call our customer service line. Anything that I sell and I present, I'm attached to it. I can't sell you something, make a promise, and then hide, and not actually follow through with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's, like you said, key, just build that reputation and build the rapport. And then, eventually word gets out and, everyone knows they can trust you, and it kind of develops from there. That's at least been my experience,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Do you foresee people that are interested in starting a business, listening to this, as opposed to other clients and networking people? Like, do you think people are going to come here for business advice, or where do you see this podcast going?
I mean, I don't want to present myself as, having the knowledge to share. I hope to be able to funnel through, people like yourself that actually have the real life experience. That was kind of my whole caveat from the very beginning of this is a way to document my own journey. Now, I do plan on seeing where this is almost a test of, practicing my own marketing of this thing and seeing how I can develop it at, start as a side project. And if I can figure out a way to monetize it, if I can build off of it to, say, compile some interviews and some key facts and things that I've learned and present it as like an ebook or something, I plan on having some videos along the way of, step by step of, maybe even one of, these are the resources that I used to learn about how to even start a podcast, and go step by step for someone that wants to learn. So hopefully I can start using this information that I'm funneling and channeling from guests that have the real experience, kind of use myself as a guinea pig and test it out, and then, document along the way. So I guess to answer your question, it's not going to come from me, but I hope, you certainly have shown that, like you said, there's people, it's easy to look from the outside in of like, oh, you own the company, you're the boss, but they're not the ones in your shoes working the hours and having to strategically look at everything, so
Yeah.
hopefully it at least gives people an insight too of the different industries, or the realistic look of, it may be exciting. You may have a great idea to start a business, but you know, not everyone can hit the ground running like you without an official plan and make it 10 years in and just keep growing year after year. So maybe help people pause, get their stuff in order, and plan maybe, and use other people's, I don't want to say downfalls, but help them sidestep some landmines through other people's experiences to make their ventures, more successful from the very start. Certainly is part of the overall goal of this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Education piece.
And that I think that's great that this is I don't know long term, but it seems by the name of it, Hometown Moguls, that it's going to be pretty centrally focused here, in the Delaware area, and it's neat that we'll be able to hear from, like you said, local people that have done things, and when you listen to podcasts and they have all those people on, they're like, we do $10 million a year, and they'll tell you like, it's great, and we have all this stuff, and look at what we do, like those success stories, they happen. But there's a lot of stuff in small town America that happens, and those are definitely not the norm. But I'll say, I know a lot of people, a handful, maybe not a lot, but I look at the growth that they've had and the reputations that they've built in not a long time, and I way more successful than I am. And I think I know how hard it was for me, and I'm not not that I'm smart, certainly not smarter than anybody, but I think, man, that guy has really figured something out. Whatever his bottleneck was, he figured it out. And they're not where they want to be, I'm sure. But there's a lot of really good success stories in this area here, and I'm sure you're going to have good guests on that are really going to shed some light. I think when it comes to business, and I try not to get off on tangents too much, so forgive me here. But the what I'll leave off on in like general business is, I always try to tell people, like, very realistic. I don't want to say don't do it. Like, you can't do it. You need health insurance. I promote it to everybody. If you want something, if you can't run a 5K and you want to run a 5K, do it. Like, you have to do hard things. That's with anything in life. You have to do hard things. And if you want it bad enough with enough effort, you can do it. Like, I know you can do it. Like, you can do anything. It's just the way it is. You just have to want to do it. That's the deal.
Yeah, and that I kind of touched on exactly like you were saying, of there's a realistic aspect by keeping it local. And that's what I liked was, I guess my vision of what success was always skewed because, like you said, I was listening to podcasts where you're listening to like Elon Musk or, people that are super way out of reach of what the average person is ever going to get close to. And it almost is a deterrent from thinking things are possible. But when I started this job and I started meeting people, and you realize, like, oh wow, like they've taken this thing and they've developed it to this size, like, and I'm just naturally curious of how that works, because I've always admired, the people that take that leap of, all right, I'm going to start paying my own way, and I'm not going to rely on a boss to do this for me. I have this vision, and so that was kind of in the back of my head of like, I wonder how they did that, or like, like, I wonder if this is the only business they have, or if this is the first one, or if maybe this is the third one. They had two other ones that just didn't quite make it, and they finally figured it out, along the way. But it brings it closer to home, and maybe that, in kind of going back to what we were saying for the education piece or whatever, maybe someone might have been sitting around with this idea in their head, and they just like, I'll never get as big as having
a warehouse of employees and this and that, but maybe it'll scale down their vision of, maybe I don't need to start with 30 employees. Maybe, just start at home, figure my way through this and legitimize it as it goes, and, inspire more people to actually take action and give it a run,
Yeah, for sure. The one note that I didn't touch on, and I don't talk about religion and I don't talk about politics, but as far as the government is concerned with businesses, there's a reason that they give businesses tax breaks on investments. They want people like you and I to employ other people. They want us to buy trucks. It's good for the car salesman that we're buying the truck from. We're going to have an employee that's driving it. They're going to be cutting grass for somebody. It makes the economy work, and the government really. I mean, everybody has their own opinions. My opinion is that they tax us. We have to pay taxes. We have to pay licensing for every town. Like, I get it. It's all part of the deal. Like, you can't fight it. It is what it is. But I think that they do a good job of reasonably helping the business do stuff to make it. That's why Amazon's as big as they are. They reinvest every single thing that they have, and they just are growing completely out of control. It's a domino effect, So, that is a perk of business ownership. I think they help you kind of grow. You have to, basically.
I guess a good way to maybe wrap all this up and finish it out. Do you have any funny stories of something you've done along the way, something specific to what you do on a day-to-day basis that I guess was unexpected, something that was a kind of a hard learning curve that you're like, wow, I'll never do that again?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I could think of like 1,000 things that I said I'll never do that again. Probably some I shouldn't even talk about, but it's funny your Leyland Cypress story, because the thing about Middletown is a lot of the houses were built in the early 90s, and you can buy those trees for $10 and they're 2 foot tall and they grow to be 50 foot, and everybody's like, oh, look, instant fence, within 5 years, you don't even see your neighbor. So they plant these trees everywhere, and they have a terrible root system. They're heavy, they're 40 foot tall, 20 foot wide, they get dead on the inside. Now these trees are everywhere, and they're falling over. Oh my God, we must have cleaned up 1,000 of those things with that tornado that we had come through here back in October or August. But my first really bad learning experience with Leyland Cypresses was right when we first started getting into trees, and I had 14 of them to do, and I was so confident I could do these things. They were full grown. I was so confident. I booked a job earlier that day, and it was just me and my dad, and we showed up at noon. And I'm thinking, these things are like bushes, right? Like, they're a 40 foot tall bush. And we got done a half of one in 4 hours. And I already had the chipper. Like, I kind of had some stuff to take care of this. And I looked and I was like, wow, I severely underestimated how much work this would be. And I was there for like a week and a half straight. Like, so much. We pushed off our jobs for weeks. Like, it was so much work. And I hired people and I paid them. Like, that literally cost me. It's not every job is as profitable as you want it to be, but that one literally cost me money, and I stuck to it. I charged the customer what we agreed on, and every time I look at a cypress tree, I have a completely different understanding of what's involved with removing them. That's definitely the worst. That's definitely the worst job I ever had. Mostly because of the pricing. I mean, the job was what it was. I just really didn't know what it was.
Well, I know firsthand that, like you said, they look like giant bushes, and you start getting into it, and you're like, all right, this is going to be a lot bigger of a job than I thought it would
be. Yeah. That'd be cool. You get this thing rolling here, get some more interviews under your belt. Maybe next time, if there is a next time for me, I can shed some more light about, we'll see where your audience goes, if they're interested in starting businesses or that kind of thing, or like you said on your intro, the accounting aspect, taxes. Like, you have to pay taxes. Everybody hates paying taxes, but if you don't pay taxes on the money's good for gas and groceries. Like, you have to pay taxes. So, maybe we can have another conversation about what I've found, like, on the actual running the business side, or if anybody has any questions, they can definitely reach out. I tell people all the time, like, nobody's competition here. We're all, there's plenty of work. I have no problem helping people out. I do jobs for other companies. Other companies do jobs for me. Like, if we team up together, like the MOT area in Delaware is great for networking. And if anybody ever has any questions about anything that I could help them with, I'm always open. So
Awesome. What's the best way to put that out there for people to reach out? What's the best method of contacting you? Is it phone call, email, social media? I'll tag all that in, put all the links up, but
okay.
I mean, just what's the best way for them to get
Yeah.
a hold of
So
you?
I actually, going back to the whole time thing, I deleted Facebook and the apps and all from my phone. It was super distracting. I go on there, a couple times a day just to, check in, see what's going on in the world, obviously. But I don't check that stuff too much, just because I just found it super distracting, especially with what's going on in the world. So I would say email is definitely the easiest, because if I don't open it, I'll look at it when I have time. So that's Sean, SEAN, at fish, lawn, and tree, all spelled out, .com, fishlawnandtree.com. And then our number is 302-383-4202. And anything that I can help with, any projects, any guidance. Another quick tangent. I had a customer or guy that was going to take over a contract that I turned down this year for snow. He called me up and I talked to him for a half hour. I told him exactly what he needed for the job, how much I charged. It was a very profitable account. It just didn't fit my model this season. I have no problem helping anybody out with anything that I can. I mean, if somebody wants to ask me a question, I'll answer it, as honestly as I can.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on and being the guinea pig for the very first interview, man.
I hope people find it useful and entertaining. I've said it 10 times now. I go off on tangents. Hopefully, it was entertaining, and I appreciate you having me on here. This is cool. People don't usually want to hear what I have to do or do all day, so it's kind of cool to talk about. It was a fun time.